The Mystery of Caketropolis, or just Cactropolis for short, is the third game I wanted to talk about in this mini-series where I cover obscure games that I think deserve more recognition. The game takes place in a world where dragons exist alongside humans. In Caketropolis, you play as Ramentus, a young grey dragon living in the town of Stalagshire. Stalagshire is one of the few places where dragons are allowed to live alongside humans, and they aren't just cast out into the wild. There are only a small number of dragons living in Stalagshire compared to humans, and so each dragon is given a shepherd to work with, a human that helps guide them and keep them from getting into too much trouble. Ramentus' shepherd is a woman by the name of Avi, or Avis, I'm not really sure, I'm just gonna go with Avi. In addition to the shepherds, the local police around the area are known as the Enforcers. They also keep an eye on the dragons and try to settle any disputes that the humans might have with them. But of course, settling these issues isn't as easy as it might sound. Now, you're probably wondering about the name. Caketropolis is a bakery being built in Stalagshire, and it's set to open on the same day as the Festival of Peace. The bakery is designed specifically to be open to both humans and dragons, and is meant to be a stepping stone to tearing down the walls that have been built between the two species. It's a place where human and dragon can go in and talk over a slice of cake. And let me tell you, Ramentus really enjoys his cake. Well, I mean, he just likes food in general a lot. Can't really blame him on that. However, the mystery part comes in when, on the day of the Festival of Peace, something terrible happens to Caketropolis, and it's up to Detective Ramentus to figure out who did it and why. Now, the gameplay of Caketropolis mostly revolves around walking around and talking to people. Like many RPG Maker games out there, there is ironically no turn-based combat to be found. The game is largely driven by the people you speak to and the choices you make in dialogue, although there are a handful of puzzles you'll have to solve as well. Sometimes the choices you make will cause you to gain or lose dragon points, or DP for short. For example, helping someone out is likely to raise your DP, while refusing to do so might lower it. DP affects certain dialogue, and also the way that you have to do some of the quests. But I'll give this warning ahead of time, DP does not affect the endings that you get. I think this is one of the biggest flaws of the game. Regardless, it's a fun system to play around with. I just wish it had more of an impact on the endings. The game has a handful of side quests as well, which can help you get special items, and also achievements. I see what you did there. Another very special feature of Caketropolis is that Ramentus has the ability to examine, smell, lick, and boop pretty much every object and person in existence. You want to go around licking random people you come across? Well, you can finally live out that dream. Doing this sometimes affects your DP, but mostly is just used for getting useful or just really goofy dialogue. It's a fitting feature for a young and curious dragon like Ramentus. Even though Caketropolis obviously has its fair share of funny moments, that's not the main reason I'm here recommending it. Underneath the surface is a genuinely serious and meaningful story about discrimination and mistreatment. As I said earlier, many humans have their doubts and fears about dragons. Meanwhile, dragons have their own issues when it comes to humans. Caketropolis makes this a clear and consistent theme throughout its runtime. Was it really a dragon that caused the incident at Caketropolis? Or was it a human, trying to further the divide between dragons and mankind? I genuinely wasn't expecting this game to have a story that leaves this much of an impact as it does when I was going into it. The goofy premise and features like the licking and booping system make it seem like a complete joke of a game, but I guess that's how it blindsided me. I think the story and the messages of this game end up being the things that make it the most memorable, and that make me want to recommend it so much. Now, before I move on to the last couple aspects like the music, I have to mention something that gets dangerously close to spoiler territory. There's a certain twist in Caketropolis that I genuinely think is one of the best twists I've ever seen in a video game. It's going to be polarizing. I know some people definitely won't like it, but for me, I have a hard time thinking of many other games that have pulled out the rug from under me this hard and made me think about the context of everything that I just saw and experienced. This twist is what cemented Caketropolis as not only one of my favorite RPG Maker games, but the second best dragon game I can think of, right after Golden Treasure, of course. Before I wrap things up, let's go over the music and visuals. I really like the music, and I think it's fitting throughout the game. There's softer piano tracks for the more personal moments, and some more tense guitar tracks for the troubles going on in Stalagshire. My favorite is one that combines the guitar and piano and drums, and it kind of has that tension and melancholy wrapped into one. For the visuals, a lot of it is pretty standard RPG Maker tileset stuff, but I like the variety of dragon and human designs. Two small criticisms I have are that 1. Sometimes the sprites get a bit blurry, especially when they're moving around, and 2 is that certain rooms can feel too wide and empty, and I think these rooms would have benefited from having more objects placed in them. You could leave enough room for dragons, while making the areas feel a bit more natural and lived in. Like all my favorite games, I love Caketropolis, despite any of the issues that it has. It takes a ridiculous sounding premise and manages to turn it into something that's really respectful and meaningful. It feels very personal, and I think it has a lot to give to anyone who follows its story. It also embraces the ridiculousness and doesn't take itself completely seriously, which keeps it fun and allows potential for some great lines. It's another example of how a simple tool like RPG Maker can be used to tell a great story. Nothing too flashy or fancy, but it still works. So for dragon-focused games, and especially games about dragons and humans coexisting, Caketropolis is one of my favorites, and I can easily say it stands out as an amazing game.